Hey guys, it's Manager Kylie, and in today's video, I'm going to go through the rules of curling. So today I'm going to go through the rules of curling. This is a sport that is played internationally. It's actually one of the Winter Olympic sports, and I'm going to go through all the rules you need to know if you're going to watch it in the Olympics or try to participate in curling yourself. But if you guys are interested in more sports administration videos just like this, definitely subscribe button, turn the bell so you get notified every time I upload. I post a new video every single Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And if there's any other sports you'd like to see a video like this for, definitely let me know that in the comments down below. So curling is played with two different teams, and each team has 4 players at a time on the ice. They usually have a 5th player, which is just an alternate. And the goal is to score points, and to score those points, you are taking 44-pound granite stones known as rocks. And your goal is to get those curling rocks in the house, which is the target at the other end of the ice. Now, the way the ice is set up, it's 46 meters long by 5 meters wide, and there is a house at each one, so one of those target sets is at each end of the ice. And the hog line, which I'll explain some more details about some of these different elements. The hog line is 21 feet away from the button. The button is the center point of that house. And the hack is 12 feet away from the button, and those will make more sense later, those terms. But that's kind of the setup of the ice, and it kind of, if you cut the ice in half, it would mirror itself on both sides. Now, the ice that you're using is actually not smooth. It has pebbles on it or little water droplets, and you later are going to find out why those are there, but it makes it so that the granite rocks don't just fly right across it. You have to put momentum onto them. Those little pebbles will slow down those granite rocks. Those little pebbles also allow that granite stone or your curling rock to do the actual curl, to curl in to where you want it. So using those pebbles to your benefit can get your stone where you want it to be and get it close to the button. Now, each player on your team, so each one of your 4 players is giving 2 stones to throw, and you alternate between each team throwing. So if we had red and yellow, the red team would throw, then the yellow team, and goes back and forth like that. When throwing the stones, you start at that hack. So that's where you start your throw, and you have to release the stone by the time you hit that hog line. So you have a little bit of like momentum push to it, and then you have to release this throw if you're the person throwing it. And then I will go into the sweeping later, but then it's up to the people sweeping it to keep the momentum going. And when throwing the stone, you do have to be strategic about this. Any stone that touches the wall or the edges or goes past the house is disqualified. So if you overthrow one past the house, your stone is just disqualified. That one doesn't count. To score points, you want to get your stones closest to the button. So whichever team has the stone closest to the button scores a point. So if you only have 1 stone, if the red team has a stone right on the button, that red team would score at least 1 point. Now, the way the point is if you see the target, if the red team has 2 stones closer to the button than the yellow team does, then they would get 2 points. If they have 3 stones closer to the button than the yellow team, they would get 3 points. If they just have that 1 stone closest to the button, then they just get that 1 point. And it's up to you to figure out who's closer. You're just kind of eyeballing it. And if you can't figure out which one's closer, the red team or the yellow team, you can ask for a measure. So each team has the ability to ask for a measurement to figure out who is actually statistically closer. Now, when throwing your stones, it does come down to a lot of strategy. Each person throws their 2 stones kind of consecutively. So person 1 from the red team will go, then person 1 from the yellow team, then person 1 from the red team will go again, then person 1 from the yellow team will go again, and then goes to person 2. So that first person has your first 2 throws for your team. They have stone 1 and stone 2, and they are known as your lead, and they are usually pretty good about getting the stone where it needs to go. So they are good at getting the stone straight from the hack all the way to usually right inside the house. They're trying to get it right onside that target before there is a lot of traffic with the other stones. Your second throws your 3rd and 4th stone, and they're usually pretty good at throwing those short stones as blockers. So they are trying to block your opponent from being able to remove your stone. So they're trying to set up blocks so that your opponent has to go around them or can't get at those stones that are already in the house. Your 3rd throws your 5th and 6th stones, and their skill is that they're usually pretty good at moving the other team's stones. So they are there to try to knock the other team's stones out of the way without touching your stones. If your stones are in a good spot, they want to leave those right where they are. So their goal is to try to knock the other team's stones stones out of the way while leaving your stones in place. And finally, your last two stones, your 7th and your 8th stone, are thrown by either your 4th or your skip or skipper. This is usually your team captain, and they are very strategic about the way they throw. They are trying to get into those gaps and try to score points for your team. They are trying to get the stones around other stones to get them where they need to be to score those points, as they are one of the last people to throw. It's just down to your skip and the other team's skip to try to get those stones on the house and get those points. Now, you might notice in curling that there's a lot of sweeping, and there's some goals to the sweeping. The sweeping is there to help direct and curl the stone where it needs to be. So if you need the stone to go faster, you might sweep really hard to try to clear that ice out and make it so that the stone keeps moving fast. If you want it to slow down, you might stop sweeping. Your goal is to try to get that stone where it needs to be to keep moving it to exactly the location you want it. Generally, your skip, your team captain, is the one screaming out the directions on how you want that sweeping to go. You can have up to 3 players sweeping at a time, so whoever's not throwing the curling rock can be sweeping. Those other 3 players can be sweeping to try to get the curling rock exactly where you want it to go. Now, one key is while you're sweeping, you cannot touch the curling rock with your foot or with the sweeping broom. And if you are to touch it with your foot or the sweeping broom at all, that is called burning a rock, and there's a few options that can happen with this. The other team gets to pick what happens. So they can choose, if they like where the location is, they can choose to just leave it where it is. They can choose to get rid of it. If they feel like it's gonna penalize them, they can get rid of it, or they can ask you to rethrow it. And it's kind of all on the honors code. So good sportsmanship is to say, oh yeah, I did touch that with the broom by accident, and then let the other team make their decision. You don't want to be somebody that touches it and then just kind of hides away from it. That's not really good sportsmanship. So it is kind of on the honor code to let the other team know that you did touch it. Now, every time you throw those 8 stones, that is considered an end. And then your next end is played going the opposite direction. So you're going one way down the ice, and then your next end is going the opposite way down the ice. That's why the ice is set up with the same setup on both sides. And you play a total of 10 ends. So each time you complete 8 throws, you figure out the score, and that team, whichever team has that closest to the button, wins their points, and then you go on to the next end. And then at the end of 10 ends, if there's a winner, there's a winner. If there's a tie, you do have to play extra ends until you get a winner. There's no ties in curling. You do have the opportunity, if you are getting destroyed in a game, the losing team can choose to just concede anytime after 6 ends. So if they feel like, okay, in the 8th end, there's no way we're gonna win this, we're down by 12 points, they can choose to just concede and end the game early. And then one thing that you might hear is the word hammer, and that is the last throw of each end. So whichever team throws second gets that last throw at the end. They get that final 16th curling rock. They are the ones throwing that last curling rock. And that is an advantage to be able to throw that. You do get a little bit more control. Every other curling rock is already there. You get to throw that wherever you want. If you knock something out of the way, they can't adjust anything. You are there to just kind of finish off the game. So that is obviously an advantage. So if you score in a round, the hammer goes to the other team. If there's a tie in a round, then the hammer stays with the team that has it. And finally, there is a time clock in curling. You have 73 minutes to throw all of your generally 80 curling stones. So you just have to make sure that you throw all those curling stones in that 73-minute period. And each team has that 73-minute period. And once that time is up, if you haven't thrown your last stone, you do automatically lose. So you have to make sure that you get all your stones thrown in that 73-minute period. So you generally have to average, obviously, under a minute for each throw. So that's all the basic rules of curling. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments down below. This is definitely one of my favorite sports to watch at the Winter Olympics. Let me know if you have a favorite Winter Olympic sport that you would like to learn more about. I would be happy to give you that information. The Winter Olympics are coming up in February. I'm super excited to watch those. But I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Again, if you want to see any other content from this channel, let me know in the comments down below. Subscribe to see new videos every single Wednesday, and I will see you guys next Wednesday.